Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the University of Kentucky is working to clean up water damage after recent winter weather left more than a dozen buildings in need of repair. And members of the 118th Congress are making their way to D.C. to begin work tomorrow. A look at what's on the agenda coming up.
Well, showery weather looks to continue as we head into the first half of 2023's first week. The details on when the wet weather moves in coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. University of Kentucky officials say they are working around the clock to fix up buildings that saw damage after those bitterly cold temperatures last month. Pipes burst in some residence halls, causing damage to dorm rooms. But as Jim Stratman reports, officials are optimistic that things will be business as usual when the new semester starts.
A week ago, UK officials were coping with problem after problem thanks to sub-zero temperatures.
Burst pipes to busted coils to sprinkler heads busting. All in all, about 3 dozen buildings on campus received some sort of impact one way or another.
University spokesperson Jay Blanton says that officials have that situation under control and the repairs are coming along well.
Since that time, around the clock, we've had dozens of members, if not hundreds of members of our facilities crews and healthcare teams on campus, along with contractors that we have on a permanent basis like ServPro, working to get buildings back in shape. We feel really good about where we are with the vast majority of buildings being back fully operational tomorrow and almost everything else being up and running shortly thereafter.
Hagen Hall, right behind me, was one of the buildings that saw the worst damage. Blanton tells me that a pipe burst on the 5th floor of this building, which impacted a number of rooms.
The vast majority of them were minor damage, mostly some flooring that was wet, but minor damage. Those rooms will all be ready when students return.
But about 5 rooms had worse damage. Blanton says that those students will be moved to another residence hall for a few weeks while those repairs are finished. Blanton says that the quick response from crews has put them in good shape to bring students back with next to no disruptions. Reporting in Lexington, Jim Stratman, WKYT.
UK staff are expected back on campus tomorrow. Students will move back in on January 8th with classes starting back up on the 9th.
Hard to believe that this time last week we were still escaping old man winter's grip, especially now that we're dealing with temperatures well into the 60s, and I think many of us have a shot at seeing 70 as we head into the day tomorrow. A look outside right now, plenty of overcast in place throughout the region. I-64 up at Moorhead, 61 there, seeing a little bit of a shine there on the road surface, but I think that's just the actual blacktop there. I'm not sure we're seeing any showers up there at the moment. Definitely the blacktop there at Slade, where they just finished working on that section of the roadway. 62, the current reading from along the Mountain Parkway, and we're all in the low to mid 60s at this hour. Many of us middle 60s, 68 right now in Somerset. We'll continue to see perhaps a shower or two this evening, but the bulk of the activity works in from our south and west as we head into tonight and into tomorrow. A couple of tornado warnings already in place across portions of Louisiana. Now, coming up in a few minutes, I'll have the latest on those showers increasing, when they could be heavy at times tomorrow, and if we have a risk for a few strong storms. Those details in a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thanks. A new session of Congress gets underway tomorrow. The first item on the agenda for the 118th Congress is electing a new Speaker of the House. Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has struggled to win the backing of some in his party whose support is needed because of the very narrow majority the GOP holds in the House. CBS's Nicole D'Antonio has more from Capitol Hill.
Republican leader Kevin McCarthy wouldn't say whether he'll need to cut more deals to be the next Speaker of the House.
I hope you all have a very nice week.
McCarthy held a conference call with House Republicans Sunday, making concessions in order to win more votes for the speakership. He agreed to rule changes, including the ability of any 5 members of the majority party to initiate a vote to remove the speaker. He also agreed to establish select committees to investigate President Biden's COVID and border policies. and to reviews of the FBI and DOJ's investigations into former President Trump and the January 6th riots.
He stood there in front of the conference and went through item by item and helped negotiate a rules change package that was broadly endorsed, including changes that I personally wouldn't have done.
Most Republicans support McCarthy, but the GOP holds such a narrow majority in the House, he can only afford to lose 4 votes before falling under the 218-vote threshold to win the speakership.
If 5 or 6 people hold out, all we're really doing is empowering the other side.
One Republican who says he will support McCarthy is embattled New Yorker George Santos. The Long Island congressman-elect is under scrutiny after admitting much of the biography he presented to voters is false.
This is a decision, whether he resigns or stays, that needs to be made between he and the voters who elected him. He's certainly going to have to consider resigning.
Santos says he plans to take the oath tomorrow, though he could face ethics charges once he's sworn into office. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
New York state and federal prosecutors say they are also investigating the finances of Congressman-elect Santos. Millions of people in the U.S. are starting the new year with a pay raise. Starting January 1st, hourly minimum wages in 23 states rose as part of previously scheduled efforts to reach $15 an hour or to account for cost of living changes. The increases affect nearly 8.5 million workers. The federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour has not changed since 2009. Additionally, nearly 30 cities and counties across the U.S. will increase their minimum wage. That's according to the EPI, a left-leaning think tank. Connecticut's senior senator urged Congress and the U.S. Department of Transportation to help better protect airline travelers. At the peak of its traffic freeze, Southwest Airlines canceled more than 60% of its operations. The senator said lawmakers have been working to prevent something like that from ever happening again. The airline blamed a perfect storm between bad weather and an insufficient company-wide computer system for nearly 16,000 canceled flights. Other airline carriers such as Delta, United, and American Airlines had some weather-related disruptions that were remedied quickly, but Southwest could not seem to bounce back, and its problems just snowballed.
And that's why an airline passenger bill of rights is now more timely and necessary than ever before. It's basic rights, ironclad guarantees, cash back if they don't fulfill their end of the bargain, and refunds and compensation if they cause additional costs to air travelers.
The goal would be to ensure airlines provide passengers with fair compensation, refunds, and recourse in the event of airline-caused flight delays and cancellations. It would also require airlines to pay at least $1,350 to passengers denied boarding because of an oversold flight, plus immediate refunds for lost or damaged baggage. This week, the Food and Drug Administration is expected to announce whether it will give accelerated approval of an experimental new treatment called lecanemab. Lecanemab is one of the first experimental dementia drugs that appears to slow the progression of cognitive decline. Phase 3 trials indicate lecanemab has shown potential as an Alzheimer's treatment, but there are also safety concerns. It's been associated with certain serious adverse events, including brain swelling and bleeding. The FDA's final decision for lecanemab is expected by January 6th. The Vatican estimates 65,000 people filed past the body of Pope Benedict on Monday as he lies in state. The former pontiff died Saturday at age 95, and he'll be laid to rest Thursday. CBS's Chris Livesay has the latest from the Vatican.
People hoping to say a final goodbye to Pope Benedict XVI poured into St. Peter's Square throughout the day, waiting for the chance to walk past his body lying in state.
He was a great pope. He was a marvelous pope.
before the crowds arrived, Benedict's closest aides prayed over him in a monastery at the Vatican. Some touched his hands wrapped in rosary beads. A silent procession in the still dark morning hours took the Pope Emeritus to St. Peter's Basilica. The basilica's archpriest blessed his body with holy water and incense before the doors opened to the public. Pope Benedict will lie in state for 2 more days before his funeral here at the Vatican. On Monday, the Vatican has confirmed he will be buried alongside other popes in the grotto beneath the basilica. Benedict became pope in 2005 and was known for his strict interpretation of Catholic Church doctrine. Despite his failures, he was the first pope to meet with victims of sex abuse and to publicly apologize. He was also the first pope to resign in 6 centuries, recognizing, he said, his incapacity to fulfill his ministry due to the strain of old age. Pope Francis championed Benedict's bravery to abdicate his power. He will preside over the funeral of his predecessor on Thursday. Chris Livesay, CBS News, Rome.
The Vatican says the funeral will be what Benedict wanted, simple. They expect about 60,000 people will attend, filling St. Peter's Square. A 19-year-old Maine man is in police custody for allegedly attacking 3 New York City police officers during the New Year's Eve celebrations. Police say the suspect is Trevor Bickford of Wells. Police say the 19-year-old took the Amtrak train from Maine to New York on December 29th. Police say Bickford attacked 3 officers with a large knife on New Year's Eve. All were sent to the hospital. They say Bickford was also sent to the hospital after an officer shot him in the shoulder. The attack happened just after 10 p.m., blocks from the Times Square New Year's Eve celebration. It was outside the high security zone where people are screened for weapons. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, if you've made a resolution for 2023, sticking to it's always the challenge. Advice from a financial expert to make smart money moves in the new year.
And showers moving toward the region now. They'll be widespread through the next couple of days when we can see a rumble or 2 of thunder as well. Coming up after this.